Hey everyone, before the story begins, take a moment to subscribe to the channel for more intense, true-to-life stories about family, betrayal, and revenge. The fog rolled low over Lake Geneva the morning my wife finalized our divorce, swallowing the water and the distant Alps until the world felt deliberately unfinished. I stood on the balcony of the apartment that was no longer mine, watching the gray swallow everything, and wondered how 15 years could be erased with a signature and a satisfied smile. Isabel had always smiled when she won. She sat across from me in the lawyer's office later that day, elegant in black, legs crossed, hands steady. She didn't look like someone ending a marriage. She looked like someone closing a deal. "This is for the best, Mark," she said softly. "You know that." I nodded, because silence had become my default language in the final years. The papers slid across the polished table, assets divided with surgical precision. She kept the villa, the investments, the shares in her father's holding company, 100 million euros, preserved neatly under her name. I walked away with a modest settlement and a box of personal items that fit easily into the trunk of my car. Outside, the lawyer shook my hand with professional sympathy. Isabel kissed my cheek, already distant. "Take care of yourself," she said. She meant goodbye. I drove north, toward the Jura Mountains, the road slick with mist and memory. My phone buzzed once, my assistant confirming the cancellation of joint accounts. Then silence. Isabelle Laurent had not married me for love. Not entirely. I understood that now. Her father, Henri Laurent, was a titan of post-war European finance. He rebuilt railways, bought bankrupt factories, and knew how to turn reconstruction into inheritance. To the world, he was disciplined and visionary. To his family, he was law. Henri never trusted me. I was the son of a man who died in a Lyon textile strike in the early 90s, crushed under police boots and political indifference. My mother cleaned offices until her hands cracked. I learned early that systems protected themselves, not people. When Henri offered me a role in his investment arm, I thought it was acceptance. I was wrong. It was surveillance. I worked. I delivered. I proved my worth. Still, I remained temporary. When Henri fell ill, the family gathered like vultures disguised as mourners. Isabel became efficient, distant, calculating. She began asking questions about trusts, wills, protections. And then she asked for a divorce. "Just in case," she said then. "It's prudent." Henri died 3 months later. The will was announced publicly. The Laurent empire passed cleanly to Isabel. No disputes, no surprises, except one. I discovered the clause by accident, weeks after the divorce, in a letter addressed to me and forwarded from my old office. Henri's handwriting was sharp, precise, unmistakable. "Mark, if you are reading this, then my daughter has done exactly what I expected." Henri had been ruthless, but he was not blind. The clause was buried deep in a secondary codicil, activated only under specific conditions. Inheritance obtained through marital dissolution within 12 months of death triggered a delayed audit, one that transferred controlling shares not to the spouse, but to the individual who had operationally expanded the company's value over the previous decade. Me. Henri believed a blood preserved legacy, but competence preserved power. The clause could not be activated quietly. It required disclosure, legal action, exposure. I sat in a small cafe in Annecy, rain tapping against the windows, and felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Not anger, not triumph, purpose. Isabel had built her life on control, on certainty, on the belief that people like me were temporary scaffolding. I contacted a lawyer Henri had trusted more than his own children. "She will fight this," the man warned me. "Publicly." "I know," I said. "She always does." The case exploded into the press within days. Headlines screamed betrayal, manipulation, secret clauses. Isabel's face appeared everywhere, controlled, wounded, defiant. She called me at midnight. "You planned this," she said, voice shaking with rage. "No," I replied calmly. "Your father did. You're trying to steal what's mine. I'm taking what I built." The hearings dragged through autumn. Geneva turned gold, then brown. Leaves fell like exhausted witnesses. Inside the courtroom, history was dissected line by line. I testified. Calmly, Methodically, I showed how I'd expanded operations, recovered failing assets, structured acquisitions Henri had approved but Isabelle had ignored. Emails, memos, performance reviews signed by Henri himself. Isabelle watched, stone-faced, as her father's voice echoed through documents he'd left behind like traps. Her lawyers attacked my character, my origins, my marriage. I let them, because the clause was airtight. When the ruling came, it arrived quietly, without drama. Control of the Laurent holding company transferred to me. Not ownership. Control. Enough. Enough to decide. Isabelle collapsed into a chair outside the courtroom, eyes hollow. "You ruined me," she whispered. I looked at her, truly looked, and felt the weight of generations pressing down. "No," I said. "I survived you. I didn't dismantle the company. I restructured it, sold off the worst assets, paid settlements long overdue, funded worker protections Henri would have scoffed at publicly but respected privately." Isabelle retreated to Paris. The villa went up for sale. Winter came early that year. Snow dusted the Alps like an apology. I stood once more by Lake Geneva, the fog lifting this time, revealing the mountains in full. I thought of my father, of crushed bodies and silent systems, of how power rarely notices those it stands on. The will had a secret clause, but the real inheritance was knowing I no longer needed permission to exist. I turned away from the water and walked forward, finally unafraid of what came next.